as 64 other college baseball teams begin their quest for a national championship. The Iowa Hawkeyes and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights left at home. The travesty that is college baseball and the Big Ten coming up. But first, a word from our local sponsor. I want to thank Ascent Nutrition. Order your pine pollen today. Ascent Nutrition's wild harvested raw pine pollen is a unique food. It helps to support brain health, detoxification, overall cardiovascular function. Support this channel here from the Hawkeye of the Storm in the business of fellow Hawkeye and Iowa graduate Lance Shuttler. Click the link below in the description below for Ascent Nutrition, or you can go to goascentnutrition.com to buy your pine pollen. Iowa and Rutgers both snubbed by the tournament committee. Maryland, the only Big Ten at large. We knew they were in. I thought I knew that Rutgers was in, but again, maybe I must not be that great of an expert or any expert with baseball, because they weren't even in the last four in, the first four out. They weren't even in that category. Michigan, the only team in, is an AQ. Again, you know how I feel about Michigan. Do I think they should? Do you think they should be able to play in the NCAA tournament? I mean, just think about everything here, Jared. So we go back to the Big Ten tournament, and it's a double elimination. But the way the double elimination is set up is if you get to the championship game, it doesn't matter if you've lost. So Michigan had lost a game. You get to the championship game, Rutgers is unbeaten. Michigan wins one game against Rutgers. They're awarded the Big Ten championship. Plus, Rutgers is now out of the NCAA tournament, chances at making an NCAA tournament. Michigan somehow in. Again, even though Michigan lost just as many times as Rutgers lost, and Rutgers also had to play. Now you can say, well, Michigan played right before, the final game too. Okay, that's fine. Rutgers played until 3:30 in the morning that Sunday, despite having not lost. I have a real problem with the Big Ten, the schedule of the tournament. I understand they were in a time crunch because they had a day taken away with weather. The fact that teams are playing until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, especially a team like Rutgers that was in position for the tournament before this tournament, they lose one game in the championship game after playing until 3:30 a.m. They get snubbed. Michigan, who cheated their way there, allegedly, right? At least in some cases, we know they cheated in the Iowa game at one point. Or I'm not saying that was the reason Michigan won. I'm not claiming that, but they did cheat at some point, and we have reason to believe this was probably happening before. I just think it's a disgrace, and the fact that the Big Ten, maybe they ruled this rule against Michigan on the foreign substance correctly, but just everything, the scheduling, the setup of the double elimination tournament, the fact that Rutgers only has to lose once in the championship game, the cheating from Michigan that I don't think was enforced as well as it should have been, or at least I don't think it was appropriate discipline, just everything about this. And then to see Iowa and Rutgers both snubbed by the committee and not even close to the field of 64, I am just dumbfounded by it. Just your thoughts on the whole situation, Jared.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what should have been done. But yeah, just when you look at everything that you just said, it doesn't sit well with me at all, just looking at everything that happened. But I don't necessarily think that Michigan should have been disqualified from the tournament just because of what possibly could have been one pitcher or more. But, they still scored 13 runs against Iowa.
Yeah, they did.
Of course. So what I think should have happened, though, because like we've mentioned, the tournament setting, the accountability that the players should have, not only for themselves, but for their team, they should have been disqualified from that game because of the situation. It'd be different if it was the regular season, but because of the magnitude of that game and the fact that they hadn't scored 13 at that point anyway. I mean, it was a close game at that point. So I think Michigan should have been disqualified from that game. I think Iowa should have played Rutgers and in the Big Ten championship. And then if Iowa loses and they don't make it, I don't have as much of a problem with that. And then just leave the fate of Michigan up to the selection committee at that point, because I don't think that their entire team should suffer consequences, because they did have a successful season. And we just don't know the extent of this. So I don't think necessarily that they should have to miss out just because of what could have been just one pitcher, but they should have been disqualified from that game. And the Big Ten should have taken more action to at least act like it was a little bigger of a deal than they did.
So I'm gonna just share something here. This is part of the NCAA's code of ethics. Okay. And I know that, I think we all can all agree the NCAA doesn't really care about ethics, but this is what their code of ethics says. Conduct all competition within the spirit and intent of the rules of competition. Submit entry marks with complete honesty and integrity. Well, let's get a good laugh out of that one, Jared. So here we know how ridiculous it is, but I'm just saying we can make these comparisons to the MLB all we want. But I do believe there's reason to at least think that the NCAA could be a little bit more. College baseball should enforce things like cheating, discipline on cheating, even more so than MLB.
Oh, absolutely.
These are student athletes, right? We're talking about this code of ethics, law or rule, whatever. And again, what was really, I know the kid got suspended, but anyway, I'm beating a dead horse. I think it's upsetting to see that Iowa, who I thought deserved to get in, did not. How you mentioned Rutgers and certainly one of the best scoring teams in not only the conference, but in the country. And by the way, 3 Sun Belt teams made it in, Jared, just 2 Big Ten teams. What does the Big Ten need to do to be able to gain some respect? Because it just seems like right now it's so heavily favoring these teams from the South. It's just almost impossible for a team like Iowa.
Well, it is hard within college baseball to gauge which of these teams are deserving. I don't know what else to say in that regard.
36-19, Jared. 36-19. Well, Iowa gets snubbed.
There's a lot of teams with good records that I was looking through that they left out, of course. But I do feel like there's some of these schools that maybe just have a bigger reputation for being having good baseball programs that may have made it in from other conferences where there might have been a Big Ten team more deserving. I didn't pay attention to college baseball as much as some watching may have. I don't know a whole bunch about all these other teams, so I can't really point to any one team and say, oh, they shouldn't have made it and Rutgers should have, or they shouldn't have made it and Iowa should have. But again, you really do think that Rutgers and Iowa did enough to make the tournament.
And that.
Especially that graphic.
44-15 on the season.
I'm more
17-7 in the conference. And
I'm more disappointed about that. I mean, call us biased here.
It's just it's not even disappointment for you. It's just disgraceful.
Yeah. I would rather Rutgers have made it and Iowa still I thought there was a good chance Iowa would be left out. That's not what we're most upset about. I think Rutgers got cheated just as much as Iowa did.
And let me just say this. Rutgers played good teams in the knock-on. All right, so they played Houston Baptist, who's in the field, swept Houston Baptist. You want to know the total score if you combine the 3 games of the 3-game series together? Let me count this up. We're looking at 30. They outscored Houston Baptist 32-8 in their series against Houston Baptist. Now, they lost to a Coastal Carolina team, who, by the way, was in the field 15-10 on the road. That's, again, a really good Houston Baptist, Coastal Carolina team. And again, that 17-7 record, I just don't know how you possibly leave them out. And then you weigh the fact that they had run through the Big Ten tournament despite getting the short end of the straw as it relates to scheduling, lose 1 game. And it was not a blowout to Michigan. I mean, I thought Rutgers fought back in that game. They got in an early hole, and Rutgers kept fighting. Just disappointing. And we move on. Iowa, as far as Iowa's concerned, I know there are certainly athletics going on this summer, but things are pretty quiet until fall camp for football in August and the start of college football in September.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a disappointment. Not as big as some of the Hawkeye disappointments we've already suffered in the last several months, but it's a big disappointment. And again, too, just kind of what doesn't sit well with me is Rutgers, the resume that that they established all year. They were one of the better teams in the country, I thought. And they had, I believe the announcer said they had the highest scoring, had the most runs per game in the NCAA. And just the fact that the only team that they lose to in the Big Ten tournament is the team. Now, I'm not saying they were cheating in that game, but the facts are the only team that they lost to in the Big Ten tournament is the very team that cheated in the Big Ten tournament. That's the facts.
That's right. Jared, appreciate you hanging out this weekend, talking Iowa baseball. I know you and I are both looking forward to the next season. But, boy, the Big Ten Conference, I think, needs to make some changes with the tournament. They need to make some changes with rules. They got to figure out a way to get more respect, and I don't think they help their cause by enabling Michigan. That doesn't help the cause of the Big Ten as far as perception is concerned. Appreciate the time, Jared, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Go Hawks.